everyone, this is Derek Flavin. Welcome back to episode 14 of How to Practice Jazz Guitar Efficiently. I'd like to begin today, like I usually do, by saying that if this is the first video that you've ever seen on this channel before, I would highly recommend that you go back to episode 1 and watch these videos in order, because this is basically like a free online jazz guitar course I'm giving you guys, and there's a lot of good information with cool examples in all of these videos, so they're really worth checking out. And there's definitely a method to the order of what I'm doing here, so really recommend that. So anyway, in today's episode, I'm happy to say that we're finally going to be wrapping up, at least for now, this topic of how I acquire all the different musical material that I might go and work on afterwards. And I'm sure there's a lot more that I could say on this topic, but I've given you plenty already, and a lot of things that I've said are really a lot of the things that I think are going to give you the most bang for your buck if you're willing to put in the work. So that's why I wanted to give you all these things, because these are really the ways in which you are going to acquire anything deliberate that you may go ahead and practice afterwards. Okay? So what I'm going to do today, because it's not a lot, I'm just going to wrap up the topic of the chordal material by talking a little bit about how you may go about maybe writing down some of your ideas, and then I'm also going to show you one more example of another sort of harmonic type of thing that you could do, whatever, just something to derive some more material, and I'll demo it for you guys, and that'll really be about it. And then after today, we can finally start talking about some other cool, interesting things. So, yeah. But before we get into all that, I just wanted to share another little corny jazz anecdote with you guys, because, you know, maybe you guys are jazz nerds like me. But anyway, I've been watching the TV series Better Call Saul, catching up on that recently, and I started season 6 last night, and the season opener, in the opening scene, they have a version of Days and Wine and Roses playing. I think it was by the Jackie Gleason Orchestra. I had to look up if he even played an instrument or not, but he doesn't. I think he just conducts it. But it was really interesting and ironic to me, because earlier that day, I was practicing Days and Wine and Roses. I was practicing my comping along over that tune. So these types of things happen to me a lot, and I kind of think they're interesting and funny as a corny little jazz nerd, so figured I'd share that with you guys. So with that said, let's get into the stuff. Okay, so as far as all the chordal material that we've really talked about so far, it's really been mostly all just about comping, and I did show you one example of a solo jazz guitar arrangement for a tune at the end of the last episode, but we didn't really even talk about it that much, but it's mostly been comping. Now, obviously there's other situations for certain kinds of chordal material that you may want to work out, but whatever the situation is, I think that the important thing to realize is that once it becomes material, and you see it like that, it could potentially be used, if you know it well, in all the other situations as well, as long as you feel like that's the right sort of choice of thing to play. Meaning that, you know, even though you may have worked out an example for comping, potentially, that doesn't mean that if you know that idea well, that it can't potentially be used as part of a more solo jazz guitar arrangement, or maybe as part of your sort of chord soloing that may be part of your solo on the tune or something. So that's why it's really important to identify the material and be able to sort of isolate chunks of the material that sort of stand alone by themselves as these like complete sort of units of like harmonic information, almost like a lick, but it's like more of a chordal lick, I guess. So in order to, you know, start accumulating these different kinds of ideas and be fluent with it, obviously a good thing to do, like I've said before, would be to write down your different kinds of ideas. Now, like I said also a few videos ago, for me, I don't really write down my chordal ideas that much as of lately, but I certainly have. And I think that the reason why I don't do it so much right now is just because my fluency in these things has improved, and it can always get better, obviously, but I'm just more fluid in recognizing certain ways to put a lot of voicings together, like I keep talking about. But when I started, that certainly wasn't the case when I started. So if you have a good way of writing down the material, then it's good because you basically have a log of all of the current sort of harmonic devices that you may like or that you may be working on. And this way, when you have the next day or whatever that you want to start working on these things, now you have a list of them so you don't forget them, so that you can come back to them and be like, oh, what were all these specific, voicings or sequence of voicings that I was using? Oh yeah, there was this. All right, well, let's see how I could try to use this over this tune, or maybe put it over here. So things like that. And I know I'm glossing over this right now, but don't worry, this is what we're going to talk about extensively in future videos to come. So that's why, again, you really want to be able to record these in a clear way for yourself if you can. So you could do this any way that you want, but I'm just going to show you how I've done it in the past. So I'm going to include one example for you right here. So this is an example over the tune Embraceable You. This is just, I think, like the first page of stuff that I may have worked out. And I think originally I was doing more of like a solo arrangement in this particular example. And, like I said before, I don't necessarily like to write my chordal ideas out as music notation, just because as a guitar player, I think that I have more easier ways to write them down and give me sort of a labeling in my head so that when I read that on a piece of paper or whatever, I can more quickly decipher what it is to do or just recall what I have to do. All right, so the way that I like to do this was on the left side, I would really just kind of write a very generic harmonic labeling. And that could be, just for like what the idea is expressing. And oftentimes it could be just for one chord in one measure, as is often the case with tonic major or minor chords. But the idea could be for a progression like a 2-5 or 2-5-1, 3-6-2-5, any progression, And also what I like to do when I label these generic harmonic labelings is if there's a specific harmonic rhythm that the voicings, which I'm going to label afterwards, are played in, I like to put that there. And the reason's this, if you have a sequence of voicings that sound good, they're going to sound good in terms of the voice leading no matter what. But in terms of expressing a genuine musical idea, the rhythm still matters in terms of the original idea and its contribution to the musicality of it. So you could, obviously once you have a sequence of voicings, you could play around with the rhythms and find other ways of making them sound musical, obviously. But I believe that there is still a lot of value in the original harmonic rhythm that you were interpreting these voicings as. So I don't want to forget that, and I want to include that when I'm practicing them as well and incorporating it into other scenarios. So it's a really good idea to put that down as well. All right, and then after the generic labeling, basically what I'll have is however I want to label the voicing, whatever is most clear for me to remember what I have to do, that's what I'll write down. And I wouldn't try to interpret my chicken scratch here too much because I'm even looking at some of these things and I've done this years ago and I might be questioning some of the things I did. But, I'll just kind of demo some of these just so you can see what I'm talking about. I just wanted to add really quickly that even though you might be looking at what I wrote here and thinking that it may look a little bit like advanced calculus, I just wanted to say you don't have to worry about this type of thing at all. The real reason why I'm showing it to you is just so you could literally see like what I wrote down in the past. Even when I look back at this, I'm not necessarily confused by it, but I don't even know if I would do it the same way if I did it again. I might even just write out a series of chord diagrams. But whatever you got to do, that's really what I want you to understand is I'm just writing down whatever I personally felt would make it clear for me to know what to play. But I also want you to understand that when I actually potentially use any of these ideas in a real musical example, I'm definitely not thinking about like all these little details in the moment because that would be way too much. I'm just kind of labeling them very specifically when I write them down, but hopefully by the time they become part of my playing and I actually use them, it's just something that I know well enough where I can just kind of recall it and it's like, oh yeah, there's that thing, and I just kind of know what to do to kind of use it. So that's really what you're hopefully striving towards. So, Embraceable You, this is normally played in the key of G. In the first measure, it's like a G major chord. So you can see I have a tonic major type thing. That's my label. And I remember, I think it was like this. you could see, because the harmonic rhythm that I put over that one major, it was a half note followed by 2/4, and that's what I played there originally. It's basically that one major 7 with a 13, pretty stock shape, and then one major 7 with a sharp 11. I wrote closed root upper structure. So for me, that was enough information to tell me that this is what that is, to remember it. And then I have 6 minor 7 root position drop 2. So in the key of G, that would be E minor 7. So that's this shape, and this is the same as an E minor 7 root position shape over here. It's just on a different string set. And E minor is, of course, the relative major of G major, so it's still really just expressed in G major. But as far as a labeling for a voicing, it was easier for me to kind of think of it as like the 6-7 in root position. Okay? 6 minor 7. So, and also you can see after that, because if there's anything unique about how you may have originally composed it, you should put it in there. So I wrote, can break up the root and the bass for the first chord, and that's what I think it's more indicative of the original melody. If I go, so that kind of breaks away from the harmonic rhythm of half note, quarter, quarter, but it's still giving you the idea. It's because that half note, quarter, quarter, that could be something that I can use in another situation. If I see G major, or forget G major, how about D flat major? You know, it's just knowing that voicing, that sequence of voicings like that is an idea. Okay? So that's why you want to work out these things and kind of put a label to them in your head. You know, I'll give you one or two more. So, you know, the next chord is like the flat 3 diminished, like the B flat. It's really going to 2, and I played, and this is actually really cool. I'm not going to get into too much of what I wrote down here, but it's actually because I start on the straight up voicing, or whatever the chord is, the flat 3 diminished, so that is a B flat diminished stock shape. But then I play this E flat diminished, which you might call like a flat 6 diminished in this key, and this is not the same diminished as the flat 3 diminished, but if we kind of move this down a minor third symmetrically, we can say that it's the same as C diminished. And C diminished is just a half step below D flat diminished, which is the same thing as B flat diminished. So by going B flat to E flat and then D flat, it's like I'm kind of playing flat third diminished, down a half step diminished, and then back up a half step to that diminished, harmonically speaking. I hope that didn't sound too convoluted for you guys. It's totally not even important. I'm just kind of showing you how the example was derived. And it's a cool way to use a passing diminished chord to go in between another diminished chord. So look at that. And it's a musical example considering the original melody of the tune. Alright? Next one for the 2 and the 5, you know. You know, what did I do? I went, right? So that can be something I can use in practice. You know, so you get the idea? So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. So, again, if you have never done anything like this, it would be a great idea because, you know, I'm willing to bet that there's some of you guys that are already at a level with jazz guitar where maybe you have worked out solo guitar arrangements and you were able to play them, to practice them, and then what did you do with them after that? You pretty much stopped playing them, and then those ideas never became anything having to do with your own playing. So, past the point of you actually being able to play that original arrangement that you composed, those ideas pretty much just went to waste. That's all you did with them. So that's why taking the time to write out these things, at least as a starting point until you develop fluency, is a fantastic idea. Okay? Alright, so as we wrap up this video today, I just wanted to leave you guys with one more cool example of a piece of material that you may enjoy, you know, or may inspire you to, you know, work out some other type of material yourself. And unlike the other chordal material type stuff that we've talked about so far, I'd say the thing that makes this different is that in this example, this is an example that really is just considering the harmony, okay? And if you haven't noticed already, a lot of times it may seem as if I'm shit-talking harmony, but I still think harmony is very important, obviously, but I just don't think that it exists in a vacuum. But a lot of us kind of approach music in that way, and as jazz musicians, we all often have our inner harmony nerd buried deep down there, no matter what. And it's still in there with me as well. So, this is just an example of voicings that I think are cool over all the things you are. And really, more specifically, is for most of these voicings. And I'm not even going to tell you what these are today, because how I derived most of these voicings, or what I'm doing in most of this here, is a topic that, in my opinion, doesn't have anything to do with jazz. It's just harmony. And if you guys like this, especially if people speak up about it, maybe I'll talk about it in a Patreon exclusive video or something. Or, if you want me to talk about like how I'm coming up with these voicings, I will do that, but it's not going to be for a while, because like I said, it has nothing to do with the actual fundamentals of becoming a great jazz musician. It's just extra sauce of something that you can do, or if you like this type of thing musically, you could explore it. But like I said, this, compared to all the other things that I've said so far, doesn't really have much to do of anything with jazz. I'm just applying it to a jazz tune. So I'm doing this to All the Things You Are. I think a lot of you guys know that tune. And when I play this right now, I'm gonna perform it, relatively rubato, just because I like the feel of it for this type of thing. But if you check out the music, because I'm gonna include the music for you guys, the link will be in the description, and obviously also on Patreon as well. But I'm gonna write it out like just very straightforward as far as voicings go. So like, it's pretty much either one chord per measure, or two if there's two chords per measure in the harmony. And so it'll all just be written as half notes or whole notes. Okay, and this example, like I said, it's not considering the melody of All the Things You Are at all. Nothing to do with it, just the form or the chord progression, okay? So you'll be able to hear the form if you're familiar with the tune and what I play here, and I think that you'll really enjoy these voicings as well. But you'll have to come to me if you want to know what I'm doing here. But, like I said, the music is there for you if you want to check it out, so enjoy. Alright, so hope you guys enjoyed that. So we're just gonna leave it there. Hope this video is not too long when I edit it down today. And yeah, you should be excited. We finally reached the end of this topic now. I certainly am excited, that's for sure. So if you guys enjoyed this, I would really appreciate if you give it a like. Consider subscribing, of course, and also if you're interested in becoming a member of Patreon, you get all the PDFs on all the videos for only $5 a month. So it's a fantastic deal if you're looking for a lot of cool musical examples, right? So that's it today, and I will see you guys in episode 15.
Swinging and playing the blues. That's what we about.
I try to help you.